meets mind, we ponder, we dream.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's great to finally meet you nowadays because this is how we do it through Zoom. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and what you're passionate about?
Absolutely. So first of all, my name is Mikael Kågebäck. I'm the CTO of Sleep Cycles. I'm in charge of engineering, and I'm in charge of R&D and try to be an innovative source at Sleep Cycle because I love
Well,
that.
that's the CTO's job, right? You got to be the innovator.
Of course, love that. uh, so my background is I've been in software for many years, but I've been in research before I joined Sleep Cycle. I have a PhD in machine learning from Chalmers, when I started. And the thing is, I had to do the math. It's about 10 years now. So I've been doing machine learning from now over a decade.
No. AI just came out last year. It only just came out last year. I don't know how you could be doing it for more than a decade.
I know. But the fact is, I did language back in the day. So I trained language models back in the day. We didn't
Really?
call them
They had language models back then as well?
They did,
Wow.
but they didn't have the L in front of them. So it was just language models, not large. That's the difference. And
small language models.
Small language models. And they were LSTMs instead of transformers. And to be fair, they were smaller, right? And the data set was smaller, but still, it was similar.
But you couldn't fool anybody into thinking it was intelligent.
Well, maybe you could still generate interesting texts, and they were kind of weird. They started out being comprehensive, and then they usually went away on some tangent, and then all of a sudden you didn't really know.
Kind of like they do today. I mean, that's what I'm constantly wrangling my ChatGPT to go back to what I was like. I asked it for a specific thing, and then it over time it just keeps going off on tangents in this direction and that direction, and sometimes it's interesting.
It makes sense. I mean, that's what they are. They are like a dynamical system, and as you update for each step, you update them, then you kind of diverge. That's just how it works, and I guess that's how I work as well. That's the person. But I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense.
So you started about 10 years ago, or started this company about 10 years ago, or when you started in AI?
So that's a good question. So Sleep Cycle was actually started in 2009. So before I joined, when I was, I think, more or less when I started doing my PhD. Was when Sleep Cycle was started, and I can tell you a bit about the company. I mean, I've been there now for about 6 years, and been the CTO for I guess 4 years now. About I started as a research scientist after I did my PhD, and then I kind of during the IPO process becoming public around 2021. Sorry. I became the CTO. But okay, so the company is all about our mission is we want to improve global health. I mean, that's what we want to do. But we want to do that by empowering people like to take control of their sleep and use their sleep to improve their health. I would say that we are both providing you with improvement tools. So we have something called the smart alarm that you can use to pinpoint a good time just before you're supposed to wake up, a good time when you're in light sleep or when you're easy to wake up, and then we'll sound the alarm at that pinpoint time. And by doing that, we can like lower the sleep inertia a bit, so you feel more refreshed when you wake up. That's a smart alarm. And then on top of that, we have this, we do sleep tracking all over the night. We do that using audio and audio event detection. So that's why machine learning is really important. And by doing that, we can provide you with insights about how you slept and also what happened during the night, even if it's like, if you sleep talked, you can listen to your sleep talking in the morning, which is fun.
Hopefully some of it's interesting.
I mean, sometimes usually it's gibberish. But for me, I've had a lot of occasions where it's actually my daughter coming in, especially when I was a bit younger, saying something fun. So that was always fun to listen to.
So it's true that like I think sleep is really underrated for a lot of people. They don't understand that it's super important to get enough sleep. So your tool is able to help people do that?
Yeah, I mean, you can at least keep track of it. Like there are many things that are important. You shouldn't stare too much just on the number of hours that you sleep, because it's going to differ between different people. Some need a lot
Sure.
of sleep, some need less. But there are some things that are really important that you do need to keep track on. One of them is your sleep regularity.
Mm.
So since we are used daily by our customers, we can actually compute your regularity and keep track of your regularity. So make sure that you go to the bed at the same time. And we have something called Sleep Goal that can help you, remind you, and so on. So that's something that's very important. If you do that, you usually end up sleeping more as well.
Mm.
So that's,
Mm.
I guess, a side effect.
I find it really difficult to not to wake up at the same time every day, because weekdays I wake up at 5 a.m. and weekends I wish I want to sleep in. But it's
I
really much
know.
better for you to stay up to be at the same time, right?
Is much better. And I've tried this. I've actually tried this. So the last year or so, I completely changed it. So now I actually have my alarm during the weekends as well. And well,
Wow.
for me personally, it's been great. I've lost weight and I feel better. I sleep a
Wow.
bit more, and
I'm gonna
everything's
try it. I'm
great.
gonna try it this weekend. My wife will
You
probably
should.
yell at me, but
Yes, you need to have like a watch or something. So
yeah,
it's the
I have a
silent
my
alarm.
Apple Watch buzzes me in the
Yes,
morning when I wake up.
and it works.
So you're a sleep researcher, or what kind of a researcher are you? I mean, how did you get into this?
Because at Sleep Cycle, we do have Mike Rodisar. He's a sleep researcher. He's a
Hmm.
psychologist by trade, been a professor in Australia right now. Me, I was the machine learning researcher. So
Mm.
I did AI. So when I started, it was a project for doing something called culturomics, but I'm not going to get into what that was. That is more or less looking at historical texts and analyzing them to see if you can see different
Oh,
patterns.
that sounds
I,
really interesting to me.
it was interesting. I continued on doing that, and then I went to our more like language evolution. So we had a field that was really just starting then. So we did a lot of collaborations with some people at DeepMind and also some people at Berkeley to use reinforcement learning to get
Mm.
agents to develop language and then look at the properties of those languages that they developed. So there was language and machine learning, but mostly machine learning
Very
for
cool.
yeah.
So, how do you apply AI to sleep? Because basically, all I see as sleep studies is it's like, here's how long you slept, here's how the quality of your sleep. So it's trying to detect those things. Where does the AI fit in? Does it just analyze it, or what does it do?
I think it fits in many different areas. So for us, I'm going to start at the like the signal level. So what we do at Sleep Cycle is that we do audio analysis. So we're available on Android and iOS. So it's really an app. You use it during the night. We have the model on your local device. So we're analyzing your audio. So
Mm.
doing that analysis is completely machine learning based.
Mm.
Using neural networks to do that analysis. And from that, we can detect your movements. It's important to understand your sleep.
So I don't need to have it connected to my Apple Watch or anything like that. It could do this all through
Yeah,
sound.
you can do this all through sound. So movement in combination with breathing. So we
Mm.
do, and we're the only one in the world that do this. Actually, we do a very robust breathing, respiratory system tracking. So we can actually
Mm.
track your respiration all through the night, both what breathing rate you have, but more importantly, when it comes to sleep. So you can think about this: if you fall asleep, or your partner falls asleep next to you, or your kid, you can kind of hear that, right? You can hear
Yeah.
that the breathing starts becoming a bit more regular. And
Mhm.
it turns out that the regularity of your breathing, which we can track very accurately, if it tells me something both about if you fall asleep, of course, but also if you're in light sleep or in deep sleep or in REM sleep. So you can actually do
Mm.
pretty good sleep staging even from this.
So you
Uh,
don't actually need a device attached to the human. You can just have something beside the bed that will listen in on what's going on. And how do you differentiate between two people and multiple people in the bed?
It's very difficult. And
I
this is
bet.
signal processing, right? This is signal processing. So we have several ways of doing this. So for snoring, because snoring is a big problem, obviously, for many, we do something called few shot learning. so we can, and we haven't had a patent on this actually. So in the app, you could, when you listen to a few dozen like snores, then you can listen to each snore and you try to say, is this you or is this your partner? So if you know you slept by yourself that night, then you know it's you. If it's your partner, it can be difficult, but if you listen closely, you can usually say. Now, when we have, I think it's about 10, but if you get more like 15 or something, then we can get a pretty accurate model on which snores belong to you and which ones belong to your partner. So now you can get two numbers, your snoring and your partner's snoring. So you can, the age-old question, is it you that snores the most or your wife? You can answer that, which is great. So,
well, I'm sure I snore differently from my wife, so that's one thing, right?
Yeah.
It's louder.
It's louder, but yeah. So that's actually one indication that can be interesting to keep track on how loud they are. But there are other things as well that are important,
Sure.
like how they come and go and so on. But that's one of them. But that's just for snoring. When it comes to breathing, for instance, there's not as much information in the actual, like if you think about the acoustic signal. For some people there are, but not for everyone. So what we do there is we use the periodicity a lot. So you can think about it. I mean, you have a signal. You can think of it as like a real-time signal where you have the probabilities of inhales and exhales over time. Now, these are going to be periodic, right? So if you do analysis on top of the output from the model, you can actually see and detect several periodicities. And so
interesting.
If you do that, then you know that you have several people, and you can actually individually, with some clever tricks and stuff, then you can actually track multiple people at the same time. So that's how you do for breathing. Right?
Oh, that's super cool. And this is the AI that's doing all this. They can do this analysis.
Yeah, I mean it's the AI that does the first step, and then we do some signal processing above that, and then we do more AI on top of that. So we have a whole stack of many different systems. But they're all vector-based, I guess. In that sense, it's neural networks, everything, all the way.
And what kind of results have you been getting? I mean, do you have any success metrics?
Yeah, sure. So I don't want to go into the actual numbers. We are doing a study right now where we are comparing the latest sleep staging algorithms that we have developed right now with PSG. So that's polysomnography. It's what you would imagine when you go to the doctors and you want to do a real sleep study. Then you attach electrodes to all over your head.
Oh yeah, I've done a couple of those. Those are terrible.
Yeah, so we have done a few of those. So we are currently doing a big one that we are running in Australia. We're collecting a couple of hundred at least of those. So based on that, we will be able to validate our latest sleep staging algorithms, and when that is done, it will most likely be a publication on that. But that's for later.
Interesting. So can you tell us, like you're mentioning something about the being able to detect where exactly when somebody should be woken up, right? Can you actually, were you, and then earlier, actually, let me go back to the other question I had. So you mentioned earlier that everybody has a different amount of sleep requirement, right? Is this able to detect that? Like, can it actually figure out, okay, I only need 6 hours sleep, my wife needs 8 hours sleep? Can it actually do that?
It's not something that is included in the product list right now, but I think when we're looking the 10 years out, kind of looking into the future, that is something that's very important. Personalizing this experience for each person. There are indicators that you can use to understand. I mean, if you sleep a certain amount and you're feeling refreshed throughout the day and you have no problems, then you're probably sleeping the right amount for you. If you aren't, then that's a warning sign, and you need to look into, maybe you need to be more
that
regular.
seems so unscientific, though. Can't you guys figure it out for me?
So there are things you can look at. There are certain signals you can look at as well in your breathing patterns and in your pulse and so on. But it's not something that is something that we do currently in the product, because it's super important to us. We can't give you advice if it's not something that we have like validated. And well, I mean, you have to be careful not to become a medical advice, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, you guys sort of fall into that weird space between medical and non-medical, right? That you have to
Yeah, and you
concern
have to be
yourself.
careful because
Yeah.
I mean you can hurt people if you're not careful. So
Yeah.
be sure
So
to.
I have this thing where I snap awake at like 4 o'clock, 4:15. Does that mean I'm done? Is that my body basically telling me, okay, it's time to get up?
If you wake up by yourself, that's a good sign.
Hmm. So it's basically my body telling me, okay, you've had enough sleep. It's time to get up, even though my alarm hasn't gone off yet.
So I don't want to get into too much with this because I'm not the sleep researcher. I'm the AI researcher at Sleep Cycle, right? But yeah, that's a good sign. But there are other things that you need to look into also. So you could still have problems with your sleep. I mean, if you have insomnia, that type of problems, then you could obviously have problems with actually waking up, even though you don't want to wake up, right?
So once you have a lot of aggregated data from a lot of your customers, is there some does it align with sort of like the common, oh, you need 7 to 8 hours sleep, depending on your age range?
Yeah, so you can see different patterns. Uh, People usually sleep a certain amount of time. I think one of the interesting things that I could go into here is how it is distributed around the world. So we did a study together with Robin et al. At the Harvard Medical a couple of years back, where we studied, because we have a lot of data and we have a lot of data over time, so we were able to do a study about how COVID and the restrictions that came around COVID had impacted sleep around the world. So one of the things we could see was when the restrictions were put in place, you had a step function. So everywhere where that happened, you could see, when we looked at New York, London, Seoul, I think, and Stockholm, you could see where the restrictions were put in, people started to sleep longer. So that's pretty interesting. Because you're at home, because you had more sleep opportunity and therefore sleeping more. So that was one of the interesting things we saw there. The other one is that there's a huge difference between how much you sleep in the Western world and how much people slept in Korea.
Interesting.
Yeah, a big difference. And I don't know what that means exactly, but
I'm curious, what was the difference? Do we sleep more or do they sleep more?
They sleep much less.
Really?
Yes. So
Does it have something to do?
Yeah.
It has something to do with the working culture there, I'm assuming.
I mean, it's speculation, I guess, but yes.
All I know is from Korean dramas. That's all I know is like they seem to work a lot of hours.
Yeah. But I mean, okay, so talking about data, so one thing that we can do that I'm really, really passionate about when it comes to Sleep Cycle, and one of the reasons that I actually chose to come to Sleep Cycle is, apart from us being able to do this sleep analysis, we have something else as well, right? Because what we have is, you have to think about, we have about 1 million daily active users at Sleep Cycle. That's
Nice.
a lot of data. And we
Yeah.
have them for 8 hours every night. So if you do the math, I mean, it turns out we analyze with our, let's call it a global, like massively parallel compute cluster of phones, we process about 1 millennia of audio every night, every
Fantastic.
night. So I mean, in an hour, we process about 200 terabytes of information. I mean, that's similar to what you train ChatGPT on and those systems, right? We do that every hour. So that's so much information, and we can do this, or we have this all over the world, and we can do it in a private way. So what I was thinking a couple of years together with my team was, how can we leverage this to do something more, not just sleep, not just for you as an individual, but for the world. And that's really was how Cough Radar was born. So that had made a lot of stir now. So what we do with Cough Radar is that we look at areas, so we can compute coughing graphs, maps all over the world. So we look at a certain area, and we have the approximate coordinate. We add noise to it to make sure that it's anonymized, and then we have the coughing rates, and then we look at areas where at least 125 people lived, also to make sure that we preserve privacy. By doing that, we now have, for all over the world, we have the coughing trends for a whole year, and we're collecting daily more data from
very
everywhere.
interesting.
can actually zoom into New York and look at different places in New York to see where it's coughing the most right now. And you can see things like you have seasonality, of course. You have more coughing during the winter, less coughing during the summer. And you can see
colds, allergies, etc. This is fantastic.
It's absolutely amazing. And we've seen a lot of interest. So many are asking us to kind of how they can get hold of this, how they can use this to do early warning systems for flu detection and things like that, because this is both high accuracy. I mean, we are actually detecting coughs all over the world, right? And we're doing,
because it's a very distinctive sound. It's not very easy. It's easy to detect, right? I mean, it's much easier to detect, I'm assuming, than all sorts of other sounds, right?
We can get to a pretty high accuracy. Yes. And
this is interesting because what you're doing, you're actually using human beings as sensors, right?
Yes.
Those are the sensors. Humans are sensors, and then they're conveying the fact that there's an issue with the atmosphere in that specific location, or the individual atmosphere, or the individual, and that you're capturing that. I mean, that's fascinating. I love that.
It's really fun, and the fact that we can do this so quickly. I mean, of course, you can get a similar type of data from the reported results from like your doctors collected, but then you first have to realize that you're sick. You have to go to the doctors. They have to do the diagnosis and send the data to the government or whoever.
Yeah, but you can see those patterns, right? If you say all of a sudden there's this outbreak of coughing in this part of New York or whatever, that you could easily make that some kind of early warning system to say, hey, something's going on over there.
Exactly. I mean, we compared our data because we had this during the pandemic. So we compared this to COVID waves in the US, and we could see that we perfectly predicted the waves with about 2 weeks in advance.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. And is this the only thing? And this is coughing that you're detecting during sleep? Is that right? Okay. So obviously, I mean, you're not listening to the person all day long. But if you were able to listen to them all day long, I can just imagine what you'd be capturing. But that's all sorts of privacy issues there.
That would be problematic. And I guess what's important for us, we get this huge scale because we have so many that are using it. There are actually coughing apps that are detecting coughing throughout the day, but they have a handful of users. We have so many users, we can actually get to something really useful.
Well, that's fantastic. That's so super cool. So you alluded to it earlier, but it's time to think like a futurist. It's the year 2034. So you've got sort of those futuristic things built in. Where do you see yourself going in 10 years? Like, where do you see yourself in 10 years, or the company?
So I think what we are doing now is really building capabilities for tracking vital signs. So we've done that a lot lately, adding robust breathing and adding coughing and so many more things, right? I think what's next now, and this is next for us, and I think this is next for the whole healthcare kind of area, it's personalization. Because I mean, if you think about it, that's really what we want to do. That okay, so we have the data, and I'm a semi, at least, expert on how to interpret this data, but most of our customers aren't. So using that to provide personalized advice, maybe help you change your habits in different ways. It could be by nudging, or it could be by setting up a good regime that you use. I think that's really what we are going. I think that's what we're going as an industry, but I think that's really what we're going in the whole health area, to be honest. You could think about it in a bigger perspective. Why aren't we, why, I mean, I sequenced my DNA at some point. I went to 23andMe to get my heritage.
Yeah,
and
me too.
Good fun. I'm not sure what to do with the data now, but it's still good fun.
Every now and then I get a random note that, hey, your fourth cousin just moved in like 20 miles away. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, did you want me to reach out to my fourth cousin?
But still fun.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
But what more could we do with that? So what I see on the horizon, has been on the horizon for 10 years or more, but I think we are maybe soon getting there, is, well, in theory, if you had 10 doctors working just for you, you could develop a medicine maybe just, specifically for you. That wouldn't be possible in the 80s. But now with AI and those kind of tools that we are getting, it might be possible. And if it's possible, then you could create medicines that are tailored to your DNA, to your problems, and will work perfectly in your biology, less side effects, and more effective. So I think personalization, that's really the holy grail.
And I think we have to go that way, because there's too much generic everything out there, right? Generic like everyone wants to use the same method to lose weight, or to do this, or to do this, or to do this, and the methods are as different as the people. So every individual needs a personalized plan to reach whatever goals they're reaching. And I think you're right. We need to sort of break away from the, oh, here's a solution for everybody, or here's a solution for a lot of people. It has to come down to a solution for one, and then that's when it'll actually work.
Yes, exactly. And it will be possible now, because all of a sudden we are freeing up so much resources when we don't have to write our own emails, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So we can actually.
Well, I'd love your tool to be able to tell me exactly when I have to go to bed, like so that it can tell. Okay, I am a little tired, and I typically go to bed at this time, but I don't know if it's the right time for me. And I'm assuming eventually you'd be able to say that. You'd say, okay, it's 9:37, time for you to go to bed, or something like that.
Exactly. I mean, it's theoretically definitely possible to create that.
How far away are we from that? I mean, it's not 10 years out. That's like next year, right? I mean, you guys are pretty close to being able to do that kind of estimation, no?
I mean, I think technically it's possible to do things like that. You also have to be mindful about the how you do that in a regulatory fashion as well, to make sure that
are you breaking a regulation by telling people you need to sleep 8.5 hours instead of 8? Is that
No, you're right. Maybe I'm too cautious now.
No, I completely understand the level of caution. I mean, I've talked to other people in this space, and they're like, oh yeah, there's certain lines that we can't cross, and sometimes the lines are fuzzy, so it's hard to determine whether or not you're crossing them until you actually have crossed them already, and you're like, uh-oh.
That's fair. So I would say, at least for me personally, I think we could do that. But I also want to make sure that we validate that method before we just release it. So it's not super simple, but definitely, why not? I mean, if it can help you, and it can help you nudge yourself into a better sleep, then it's perfect. It's going to help you with your health. I mean,
and I think sort of pushing the importance of sleep, because I think a lot of people forget about that, right? They say, you need to exercise, and you need to lose weight, and you need to do all of these different things. But when it comes to sleep, it's just like, okay, well, I'll get whatever sleep I can, right? And I think it's a fallacy. You really need to have a specific amount of sleep in order to recharge your body, and that's something that we need to get back to. And I think it's great that your tool is helping people to do that.
I agree. I mean, there's a reason that everything sleeps. All biological, everything on Earth, more or less, sleeps.
Yeah, especially us, because we use up a lot of energy up here.
I mean, it wouldn't be a thing. Sleep wouldn't be a thing if it wasn't really, really important. Because if you look to evolution, it doesn't really make sense to be unconscious for 8 hours every day. So it probably has a very, very important role, and it does. Yeah.
And I think it's a society that's made it feel less important, but we definitely need to get back to better sleep, for sure. So this has been great. Thank you so much. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
So if you want to learn more about Sleep Cycle, you can come to our homepage at sleepcycle.com. And if you have any questions regarding what I talked about today, you can reach out to me as well. So it's my surname at sleepcycle.com. So it's Kaggeback at sleepcycle.com.
Very cool. And I'll put all the information, links in the show notes, so people can go directly to your LinkedIn page and stuff like that. So thank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Pixels and philosophies merge and mold, a future untold, unseen.